Being very entitled and controlling, narcissists have no difficulty stepping all over your personal boundaries. So that's why I put together an extensive video class called This Is Me. It has 25 videos, written documents, guided questions. I'm going to teach you how to have healthy boundaries. There's a link below, and I hope you'll find it to be quite therapeutic. I'm hoping you're the kind of individual who approaches relationships with a real positive intentionality. We might refer to it as having psychological vision. You know who you are, you know where you want to take the relationship. And typically when you're in that kind of mode, you're thinking questions like, who am I? What do I bring to the equation? Who are you? And what are your particular needs going to be? What pluses and minuses do we each have? And how might we be able to work with one another to maximize our potential? That's what I mean when I say we can have a certain kind of psychological vision. Now, one of the things that can happen that can inhibit that is each one of us can have blind spots. Now, when I talk about blind spots, there are times when we may bring ingredients to a relationship in an unknowing kind of way that inhibits that sense of growth or relationship harmony. And so healthy individuals are the kind of people that say, you know, if you see that I have a blind spot, if there's something that I don't seem to have an awareness of, I welcome your input. Now, you can see where I'm going with this. Narcissists have lots of blind spots, and then they also have a very, very low willingness to receive insight regarding those blind spots. Now, what I've done is I've jotted down some testimonials that I've heard through the years from individuals who have come to terms with their own blind spots. And I want to read these to you because it gives you an idea of how things could be. And then I want to bring it back to the world of narcissism and show you how they seem to be stuck on some common ingredients that keep them in their blind spots. For example, here's one person that says, I used to think that my mother was devoted to me in a very special way because she was so involved in all of my activities. But as I entered adulthood, I began realizing how dysfunctional my family life had been because I was never allowed to think for myself. I had to rethink how controlling and judgmental I had become because that had been the norm that was used with me. That's a person coming to terms with a blind spot. Another individual says, I grew up in an environment that encouraged us to make fun of anybody who was different. And that included people of different ethnicities, different religious practices, different sexual orientations, different body types, different socioeconomic status. Only later did I learn how brainwashed I had been. Why did I have to ridicule people for being different? Why would my need to be a somebody come at the terms of making someone else to be a nobody? Looking back, I'm horrified that I was so ignorant when at the time I thought I was being clever and funny. That's a blind spot that had to be taken care of. Another person says, I was raised to be kind and helpful to the point that routinely I neglected my own personal needs. In fact, I thought it was a badge of distinction when I would go out of my way to make someone else's day. It was only after several really painful relationship collapses that I realized that in my people pleasing, I was quietly dishonest. I was helping no one when I'd suppressed the real me while allowing others to be controlling and exploited. And you can see that these are people who, as they aged and matured, began realizing, you know, I have some tendencies that have been there that I wasn't terribly aware of, but now that I'm in the maturation process, I can see it, and they're wanting to eliminate those blind spots. Now, what I want to do today is I want to show you that narcissists have at least 5 common blind spots that I'm hoping you can see through. They're probably not going to be able to do so, but when you're able to see what they can't, then at least it allows you to maneuver through your relationship with them without getting caught in the snares that go along with their blindness to who they are. Let me run through, like I say, 5 of the most common blind spots that I see narcissists inclined towards. Now, the first is when they become defensive and yet they refer to it as being decisive. I want you to think, how many times have you tried to talk with a narcissist and you might have said something like, hey, I noticed this happened, but I was kind of hoping it would be this way, or we have this project and can we include this over here? And before you know it, you're running into a wall of defensiveness, and they're justifying, they're rationalizing, they're explaining that you're being unreasonable. And so much of this is set up by their own thought about themselves as saying, well, I just know so much, and I'm a very decisive person, and you're kind of raining on my parade. You're stepping on my plans here. We can't do that. And you're thinking, I'm not talking about that. I'm just talking about your defensiveness. What's going on there? And when they come across as defensive, and if you were to actually say something to that effect, it's something they wouldn't see. That's a major blind spot that's exceptionally common with the narcissistic population. A second very common blind spot that they have is how their desire for admiration is really a reflection of what we might refer to as their acceptance deficit. The narcissists desperately want you to say, oh, you're a great person, you're wonderful, to the extent that they have way too strong of a need for that. And in fact, we can refer to them as being psychologically needy. And they must have your compliments, and they must have your words of strong affirmation. They want to have your loyalty. They want you to give priority to who they are, and they don't want you to have to talk about any blemishes they have. They have such a strong need for admiration, that if you were to say something to that effect, it'd be like, I don't know what you're talking about. And yet all of their tension and anxiety when they don't get it tells us otherwise. A third very common blind spot that narcissists have is very commonly they will interpret disagreement as rejection. So you may say something like, well, I didn't really see it this way. I had this interpretation instead, or I have this opinion that might tell you a little bit something that's different from your opinion. And they're over there thinking, so you're just trying to run me into the ground, huh? And so they actually make themselves to be a victim. And if we were to look more deeply into why something like that happens, typically these individuals have such a deep history of presuming that judgment or criticism or shame is going to be coming in their direction, that when you come along and say, hey, I just think differently from you, it's like, yeah, you're going to be the next person in line that's going to lay me low, and I'm not going to let that happen. And that's an enormous blind spot that they have. They don't see how they carry that kind of ingredient, but it impacts them in so many different ways. Now, another extremely powerful blind spot that they have has to do with their need for control. What narcissists will say, I'm not really that much of a controlling person. And you may be over there thinking, you have got to be kidding me. These individuals can be bossy, they can micromanage, they can have all sorts of advice for you that you didn't ask for. And if you say something about how that's really not what you need, then in their mind, they're thinking, I'm just trying to be helpful. You need someone like me to explain to you how it is. And if you were to say, well, actually, you're just being a controlling person, in their mind, it's like, boy, did you get it wrong? And that's a blind spot. And until they can come to terms with that, they will continue and press their issues over and over. And then let's say a fifth very common blind spot that they have is a narcissist's efforts in love have little to do with love. Narcissists, if they approach you in such a way that says, I want to have a loving and caring and tender kind of relationship, it kind of goes back to their need for admiration, but they're wanting you to express loyalty, and they want you to conform to them. It's very ego-driven on their side, and as they try to determine if you are going to be that loving person toward them, you'll notice that there's no humility on their side of the equation. There's hardly any sense of servitude or kindness or goodness, except if they're going to get something from you. And they don't really understand the nature of love as being something where where you lay down that ego and you try to tend to other individuals. That's not what they're looking for at all. Now, over time, as narcissists maintain these blind spots, and there could be more that would be apropos, it sets up the narcissist for other characteristics. Characteristics like stubbornness, or repeating the same old dysfunctions, or being unable to receive feedback. In other words, their closed-mindedness, and it also sets them up for lots, and when I say lots of projection. They see in you what they refuse to see within themselves. In fact, projection is the ultimate defense mechanism of a person carrying major blind spots. So let's go back and remember, every one of us can have our blind spots. That means that each one of us needs to have a certain amount of accountability to one another, and we want to have a willingness to share and engage in exchanges with other people so that we can be better versions of ourselves. I mean, at some point, if you've had something that's gone wrong in a relationship, you don't have to take responsibility where it doesn't belong, but you might say, well, if I'm constantly at odds with other individuals, I at least want to be willing to take a look at who I am and what my contributions might be. Narcissists, they're too blind to that. Try telling a narcissist, hey, there's something here that you're not really recognizing. And what they'll do is they'll say, you got that wrong. And you know what my reaction to that is? You're proving my point. Now, I hope that this gives you some good awareness of what you're dealing with, and I'm hoping you're the kind of person that can make the adjustments that are going to be in the healthy direction, and they may not join you in that at all. But nonetheless, I'm wanting this to be an impetus for you to say, I'm on Team Healthy and I want to be the best version of myself. If you've not already hit the subscribe button, I would encourage you to do so, and we'll keep more videos coming your direction as you watch the videos on a cumulative basis. I'm hoping it's part of your growth trajectory. If you have a need for therapy, and I know many times as you're trying to work your way through these people that have the blind spots, that would be something that would be helpful. You know that I've been sponsored for several years now by the people at BetterHelp.com. It's become very popular. It's online and it's accessible, and you can cater it to your time. There's a whole team of licensed professional therapists. If you go through the link that we have below, you can choose who you would like, and you can get a 10% discount on the first month. Please seek the therapy if that's the need that you have. Likewise, I have my therapeutic classes, and it's like signing up for an online course. Each class has multiple videos, like 25, and written documents with each one, guided questions, and takes you down a certain path. We have the class Ready, Set, Connect about making good connection skills. This is me about establishing those boundaries you need. Free to be, finding yourself despite the controllers. Likewise, we have my webinars like a narcissist anger versus your calm confidence. That's my favorite one. But we have my webinars. We have our podcast. We have my books, and on our website, there's plenty of articles. So lots of resources for you. Okay, one of the things I'm hoping is that you can become more and more of an enlightened kind of individual, which means you have that psychological vision. Narcissists not only don't have that psychological vision, they're psychologically blind to so much of what drives them. That's not something you need to be pulled down by. That's their issue that they have to come to terms with. But I'm hoping that you can decide, well, I am going to be honest with myself about who I am. I'm going to be open to input. And in doing so, I'm on my growth trajectory because, you see, I want to be a person of steadiness. And ultimately, I'm seeking to find a lifestyle that's anchored in that psychological peace.